Coming in at number 10, we have a cooler costume. Okay, this is a little unfair because Spider-Man was designed back in the 60s, and even though there have been some major rework since then, the base style of his suit still stays the same. So Miles has a look that is much more modern, but really it's the black and red that sends it home. The color scheme is so much cooler than the main Spider-Man suit. And when you throw in the Spider-Verse version with Miles wearing the hoodie, the jeans, and the Jordans, it's hard for the original web slinger to compete. Imagine if that was real life and Miles was spotted wearing Jordans while swinging around New York. The stock price on those shoes would go through the roof. And I think that's the only thing that can make them cooler than being related to Michael Jordan himself. I mean, I don't know who's cooler, Michael Jordan or Miles Morales. I'll let you guys discuss that in the comments. Coming at number 9, we have Miles was a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent. Now, this one could be split. Some people may see this as something extremely cool. You're working for the largest defense agency in the world. It's supported by the government and has been helping the Avengers keep the world safe for longer than I've been alive. But on the same hand, some people might see working for S.H.I.E.L.D. as lame and some sort of cop-out version of being a hero. It's like when the indie band starts doing commercials for Coca-Cola and all their songs sound like they're produced by Timbaland. By the way, I love Timbaland. I'm not trying to diss him. I'm just saying it's more mainstream. But I threw this on the list because Miles becoming a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent is something he accomplished while he was still very young, which means he could end up being a more advanced Spidey than Peter Parker by the end of his Spidey career. But at the same time, he probably wouldn't have been able to do this without Spider-Man's help, and that's why this point is only at number 9. Coming in at number 8, we have new villains. Of course, we see new baddies pop up in Peter's version of the Marvel Universe all the time, but the franchise has been around for so long, it's hard to have these new villains have much of an impact as the Green Goblin or Doc Ock. And even when new villains come in, we will sometimes see that old comic book trope where it's actually a classic villain in disguise the whole time. We see this happen with Batman and the Joker a lot. But with Miles, he's such a fresh new character that introducing new villains gives them a chance to become the new arch enemy. This allows writers to carve out something new in a comic franchise that's already so cemented. Coming in at number 7, we have Into the Spider-Verse. Now, I might catch some heat for this, but I'm gonna put it on this list. Into the Spider-Verse might be the best Spider-Man movie ever. I mean, they all have a special place in my heart. The Sam Raimi movies kicked open the door for Marvel characters being on screen and racking in web loads of cash. The 2 Garfunkel movies, although they weren't the best, they showcased some villains that I was happy to see on screen, and the MCU has really captured the perfect version of Peter Parker. But Spider-Verse was phenomenal in so many other ways. For one, it was the most touching Spider-Man movie. The relationship built between Miles and his individual family members feels so much more real, and the Stan Lee scene legit made me cry. Also, the alternate universe clash of villains was so cool. I love the wide array of variants. The Doc Ock reveal in that movie might be my favorite part of the whole film. And to top it off, it had some unreal action scenes and opened up a mainstream audience to Miles and the concept of the comic book multiverse. Not to mention, the movie won an Oscar. Coming in at number 6, we have regeneration powers. Now, most heroes have some sort of advanced ability of regeneration. That's just a generic power that a lot of heroes can use, but with Miles, it's much more powerful. There have been several occasions where Miles has been getting pummeled by some sort of big baddie and bounces back faster than a dodgeball hitting that quiet kid in gym class. There was one occasion where Miles was being tortured by none other than Doctor Doom, and even after a long, exhausting Saw-like treatment, Miles had enough gas in the tank to keep on punching and break free. When compared to Peter Parker, Miles can take a beating and come back punching way faster. Coming in at number 5, we have Venom Bite. The traditional way for heroes to stop a villain in all superhero universes is with the fist-to-face approach. I mean, it has worked for over 100 years, so why stop now? Well, maybe there's a better way to do things with these thugs if you have the right powers to do so. If you wanted a stealthier, less violent approach, then Miles is your guy. Miles possesses an array of powers that Spider-Man doesn't have, one of those being the Venom Bite. It is a knockout skill that will send even some of the biggest baddies in the villain catalog to an early bedtime. Then you just gotta web them up and wait for the cops to show up to take them away. It makes Miles the perfect stealth ninja and gives him the opportunity to come in and take bad guys out without a scratch. Coming in at number 4, we have Spider Camouflage. Think of how much money this guy saves on camo every year, because we're all spending a bunch of money on camo, right? That's not just me. Well, let's continue down the list of powers that Miles has that Peter does not. One of these powers goes hand in hand with the Venom Bite, and that is the ability to blend into the environment. environment, and not like the new kid in class blending in to desperately avoid being different, but he can actually become invisible. Hot damn, the deeper we get into this list, the more Miles seems like a super spy. Now, Miles can use this power in a variety of ways. We have seen him use this power to sneak into somewhere without being seen, but we've also seen him use this power to escape enemies when things get hairy. Just another way Miles can use the perfect non-violent approach to stopping crime. Coming in at number 3, we have bioelectrokinesis. Okay, enough with the non-violent approaches for a little bit. Let's get into some of the right-in-your-face blast the hell out of people powers. Miles Morales has the ability to blast electricity right from within his body. This has been called the Venom Blast, and Miles can use this skill to knock out villains extremely quickly. Now, Miles being such a young hero, he doesn't really have a grasp on this perfectly yet, so the Venom Blast can come out at varying degrees. Sometimes the Venom Blast will just stun people for a moment and give Miles the chance to get the upper hand. Then there have been other times where it will knock out some of the biggest, baddest villains. For example, Miles has the ability to summon a Mega Venom Blast, which can destroy most of his surroundings, but will leave him in a weakened state for using that much energy. He can also focus this electrical power into certain areas of his body, like his fists, and deliver more powerful blows. And he's even used this power in more inventive ways, like shutting down computers or other electrical devices. Coming in at number 2, we have he went toe-to-toe with Galactus. Okay, you have to give him some credit for this. Even if you don't agree with anything on this list, you can't deny that going out to battle the World Eater is an amazing feat and should be recognized. Now, this wasn't a solo effort, because how could a teenager who shoots webs out of his hands be able to take down someone who is nearly a god and literally sucks back moons for dessert? So Miles went into this conflict with the king of stretchiness himself, Reed Richards. The two went in so they could get more information on Galactus and figure out a way to bring him down. Just having the bravery to take on such a monumental task, props to Miles. And for the number 1 spot, we have Miles might be immortal. Not being able to die, well, that's a very useful skill for any hero to have. Now, how could this be? Well, if we open up Ultimate Comics issue 3, we will find Miles in a heated battle with Norman Osborn, as he is in a full Green Goblin state. During this scrap, the GG starts monologuing, as supervillains do, and he tells Miles that the Oz formula that is coursing through the young Spider's veins, the one that gave him all his powers, had one major side effect, and that just happens to be immortality. You think they would write that on the bottle or something. Now, this resistance to death has not been tested, but I'm sure down the line we will find out if Miles is in fact death-proof. Alright guys, that has been our list, but just before I let you guys go, I'm going to give you guys my personal favorite non-comic book Spider-Man properties. First on this list has to be Spider-Man 3. Yes, this is one of the worst movies ever made. It was way too long and convoluted, and Evil Peter is one of the cringiest things you could ever put on screen, but that is exactly why I can't get enough of it. The Spider-Man dancing scene is one of the greatest things that has ever been put into the universe, and the memes that have come out of it are absolutely amazing. My next pick is the original 60s Spider-Man cartoon. Nothing has stood the test of time better. Once again, this property is objectively bad, but it's so ridiculous that you could still sit down today and laugh through every episode. And of course, the memes from the 60s Spider-Man are fire. Also, this was the birthplace of the Spider-Man theme song, which is probably the most iconic piece of this character's history. And last, I have Tom Holland. Okay, he's not like a Spider-Man property, but you understand the relation. The amount of mess-ups that this guy has done publicly with accidentally revealing Marvel content is perfect. I love it. When he accidentally showed off the Avengers poster, I laughed so hard I've probably watched that video 20 times, and he is my favorite. Coming in at number 10, we have the homemade Miles Morales suit. I love when you go back through the comics and you find the first suit that every super put on. You have the janky Iron Man suit that was too bulky to fly, you have the old school Blade looking amazing in the 70s attire, and the famous purple pantsed Hulk. With Miles, we have a classic look of the sweater thrown over a black t-shirt with the black pants on. This suit is just amazing because it marks the dawn of a hero, the moment when you accept the fact that you're going to take on all the evil in the world and protect the people who can't protect themselves. And it shows how young, unexperienced, and unprepared Miles is to go out and fight crime. Those first few years as a super are some of the best comics you can read. It's fun watching the hero make little mistakes while trying to stop a bank robbery. It's a refreshing break from trying to stop Thanos from collecting the Infinity Gems. I gotta say, that's probably a lot easier. Coming in at number number 9, we have Miles wearing Spider-Man. This happens a lot in comics. A superhero dies and then a less experienced hero with similar abilities puts on the suit to take up the mantle, so the world feels safe and no one knows that they passed away. We saw it happen in Batman when everyone thought that he was dead and Nightwing decided he would become the new Bat. And then the same thing would happen with Miles, but in a much less official way. In the Ultimate Spider-Man universe, there was the tragic death of Peter Parker. The world was now left without Spider-Man. Miles thought that New York should not be without the friendly neighborhood hero. Now, unlike Nightwing becoming Batman, Miles didn't have access to the official tools that Spider-Man had been using, so he ended up wearing a Spider-Man suit that a friend purchased for him from a Halloween store. You can imagine this wasn't the same quality suit that Peter Parker had been repping, but hey, a hero gotta do what a hero gotta do. Coming in at number 8, we have the Spider-Verse Spider-Man costume. Let's roll from one tacky, poorly fitting Spider-Man knockoff suit right into another. In the movie Into the Spider-Verse, we have Miles wearing a Spider-Man costume that he cuts eye holes into, and it's way too baggy for him. This is a hilarious look, and it really showcases the hero just starting out and having no idea what he's doing. Not only that, but Miles got this suit from Stan Lee himself. Do you guys remember that scene in the movie? Just a warning for anyone who hasn't seen Into the Spider-Verse. I don't know what you've been doing with your life, but there will be some spoilers coming up. In this scene, Spider-Man has just died. Miles goes into a store to get a Spider-Man costume. He then gets the suit from Stan Lee, and Stan Lee says, "I'm going to miss him." And this was right after Stan Lee had just passed away. I'm not confirming that me and my bro cried in the theater, but we might have cried in the theater. Coming in at number 7, we have the Ultimatum suit. Dimension traveling Spider-Man, that's just something that comes up in the comics again and again. And when we see Ultimatum Miles Morales, it doesn't even look like any Spider-Man I know. And that's partly why I put it on this list. It's good to have a little variation, baby. The Ultimatum suit looks like a collage between different heroes put together. And I'm gonna say it's not my favorite suit of all time, but it does have some pretty cool elements. On the back, it looks like it has Captain America's shield. The chest seems to have the circle plate glowing thing that Thor has going on. And then when you step back and look at the whole suit put together, there's some major giant man vibes. Coming in at number 6, we have the Cosmic Spider suit. Even though some comic fans don't see Miles as a legit Spider-Man, he has made some amazing accomplishments and deserves to be respected. I want you guys to know that I think Miles is a first-rate Spider-Man, so don't destroy me in the comments, please. One of the most insane things that Miles has done is become Captain Universe. This took place in Spider-Geddon number 5, and it gave Miles a whole new look. The white, blue, and black cosmic look was extremely cool, and of course he had a slew of new powers at his fingertips. He had the ability to blast energy rays out of his hands, he could fly, he had hypnosis, he had telekinesis, and that is just a few of the powers that were passed down to him. When people become Captain Universe, they are sort of a Silver Surfer-esque being with the amount of cool things they can do. Coming in at number 5, we have the black and gold Iron Spider suit. This suit is a masterpiece. The black and gold go together so well. You can't not look like a boss while wearing something like that. Also, it has the extendable metal arms that every other Iron Spider suit has. Now, I am well aware that this suit is only worn by Miles for a little bit. I know that it's mostly worn by Aaron Davis, who is the Prowler and also Miles's uncle. Man, I think you have to have family issues if you want to become a hero. It's like the trauma makes you better at saving people or something. Coming in at number 4, we have Spider Tech. As time goes on, so do the cool possibilities for suits. This suit was featured on the cover of Miles Morales 13. At first glance, it might just seem like a standard suit, but when you get a closer look, you will see that there's much more going on. There's a digital logo displayed on the front of the suit that has an amazing effect. It kind of looks like this static thing going on, and the same effect is layered over the eyes. Also, the glowing red on the gloves and shoes just makes the whole thing pop. I love how this whole thing has a very near future look. I don't know how practical it would be to have glowing parts on your suit while you're fighting crime, but hey, I still dig it. Coming in at number 3, we have Miles Cross Carnage. Whenever a symbiote gets onto someone, it makes them 10 times cooler, and when this creepy liquid alien managed to hook its claws into Miles, we got a variant look that is insanely cool. The black and red crossed with the flowing being of the symbiote really makes the suit look way cooler than a lot of the other versions of Carnage. Maybe not cooler than the Green Goblin, but that's a whole other beast. My favorite thing about this look is the spiral on the face. The sort of hypnotic spin that is entrenched in the face really gives off an image of insanity, and when Carnage is pulling the strings, you know things are going to get a little crazy. Coming in at number 2, we have Weird World Miles Morales. Yes, this suit has to be one of the coolest in the whole Marvel universe. And I'm not even just talking about Spider-Man suits, this is one of the coolest of any superhero. I mean, let's just take a look for a moment. First of all, he has a cape, and I know Edna Mode preaches no capes because they're not practical and they're possibly very dangerous, but my god is this cool. It's all black with red webbing running through it, and then it comes with a hood. He looks like Batman crossed with Assassin's Creed. Then we top this off with the fact that this version of Spider-Man is whipping around daggers at everyone. Are you serious? A Spider-Man who uses throwing knives has to be one of the most lethal things on the planet. Coming in at number 1 is Into the Spider-Verse with the Jordans. Oh yeah. Into the Spider-Verse was a smash hit and introduced Miles Morales to a mainstream audience. I know many comic fans have been singing his praise from the mountaintops for years, but I feel like this movie was so incredible that mom and dad who don't read comics now know who this new web slinger is. And I have to say that this movie brings in one of the best suits that we have ever seen Miles in. Now, the suit doesn't give him any special powers unless you count looks that could kill. But in this movie, we have Miles wearing a black and red suit with the red logo sprayed on the front of the suit. Having the spray painted logo gives Miles such a unique look and showcases his personality coming through the costume. On top of this, we have him rocking a dope hoodie, jeans, and the Jordans. You gotta give it to Miles for having a pair of Jordans that match his suit perfectly. I do wonder if it makes it harder for his feet to stick to surfaces, but especially after the Michael Jordan documentary, The Last Dance, this has gotta be one of the best superhero suits ever. Alright nerds, that is all we have for you here today, and before I let you go, I'm going to give you guys my picks for my favorite Spider-Man video games. My first pick has to be Spider-Man 2 for the PS2. If you're too young for this, you won't remember how amazing this game was. Literally, it blew everyone's mind because it was the first time you could be Spider-Man in an open world sandbox game and go anywhere you wanted. I even remember the commercials. It was like, you can go from the rooftop to the blacktop. Nowadays, this is something that's very standard in games, but back then it blew everyone's mind.
Hey, you're actually keeping up. Nice.
Coming in next is Ultimate Spider-Man. This game had a wide array of characters with some crossovers from other comic books. It's a game that felt extremely comic booky with all the villains and expanded universe things that were taking place, which really made you feel like you were playing inside a comic book. And my last pick is, of course, Marvel Spider-Man for PS4. This game is hands down the best Spider-Man game ever made. The open world is amazing, there is a ton of fan service in the game, and the game was made by Insomniac, who has stood the test of time as one of the best developers in the industry.
Number 10, Mind Spinner. Mind Spinner is one of the clones of Miles Morales because guess what? He got his own clone saga. That is right. And Mind Spinner is one of his own clones. I don't know if we needed a Miles Morales clone saga, but I gotta say, I did really like the clones we were introduced to through it. Mind Spinner is different from Miles in that he has a physical mutation. He has real spider legs coming out of his back, which can at times give him a leg up in combat. See what I did there? Mind Spinner is also a psionic, so when you are fighting him, it's not just your body you need to be worried about, but also your mind, as he is able to attack his opponents telepathically as well. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving what we do here at Top 10 Nerd, why not check out our newest channel, Most Amazing Top 10 Anime. Number 9, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. This version of Spider-Man is only ranking lower because he's much newer when it comes to the world of heroics. He is just coming into his own and learning of his power set and how best to use and control it. I mean, in the first animated film Into the Spider-Verse, Miles as a new Spider-Man is still struggling to stick to surfaces, crawl around, and safely unstick, and he can't quite get a hold of his camouflage abilities either just yet. But hey, he's new. He's definitely trying. I love this version of Miles, and I personally cannot wait to see him come more into his own and become even more powerful in the next film, Across the Spider-Verse. Number 8, Ultimate Spider-Ham. That's right, Peter Parker isn't the only one with an alternate Spider-Ham persona, if you can believe that. Miles also has his own version. Sometimes referred to as Ultimate Spider-Ham, this more realistic version of Spider-Ham, an alternate of both Peter Parker of Earth 8311 and Miles Morales of Earth 1610, 1610 goes by the name of Miles Morhaimes. In his home reality, Miles follows in the footsteps of the original Spider-Ham, Peter Porker, of Earth 14094, as this is the reality where Miles hails from. After his reality was destroyed, Ultimate Spider-Ham became one of its only known survivors, and he traversed the multiverse, warning other worlds of their coming doom. He learned on his travels that there was one constant when it came to ensuring a reality's safety, it seemed: the existence of a child born of Sue Storm and Reed Richards. However, in the 1610 reality which he came to, it seemed that Sue Storm and Ben Grimm's child was the one who was destined instead to fill this role. Thank goodness, because I know Sue did not want to be with Reed in that reality. This version of Miles shares the Earth 1610 power set, but is a humanoid pig. So yeah. Number 7. Salim. Salim is an evil clone of Miles Morales. Salim or Salim, however you want to say that. He believed he was created to be superior to the original Miles Morales, and this belief and his rapidly approaching end seemingly corrupted his mind. Salim, like the other clones of Miles, was unstable and as such began to rapidly age. Salim's name is Miles spelled backwards, but despite being his clone, he did not seem to possess all of his powers. However, he was an extremely skilled combatant, likely even more deadly than Miles. Of course, Miles doesn't usually aim to kill, so keep that in mind. Salim possessed Miles' Venom Blast, using it to electrocute his enemies, often to death. Also, in many other skill sets, Salim felt he was actually superior to Miles, even suggesting that he spoke better Spanish than the original 1610 Miles Morales. Number 6. Shift. Shift is another clone of Miles, but unlike Salim, he is still alive. Salim and Miles faced off in a final showdown, but after Shift switched sides, Salim, ultimately feeling betrayed, took out both himself and the other Miles clone Mind Spinner, destroying them both with a giant Venom Blast. Shift's powers, while less intuitively destructive, are definitely cooler than Salim's. He has shapeshifting abilities which he can use to bolster his own strength and durability, even appearing resistant to Venom Blasts. He also possesses a spider sense and is extremely agile. Despite being unable to speak due to a flaw in his cloning process, he still possesses a gifted mind, so don't let the fact that he's a man of few words fool you. Unlike Salim, Shift became a stable clone, possibly due to Miles' baby sister, Billy, sneezing on Shift after he helped to rescue her from Salim. The theory is that this causes Shift somehow to produce antibodies, which I guess helps to stabilize his cells. Kind of a weird explanation, but I'm gonna roll with it because I like Shift. Number 5. Ultimatum. Ultimatum is considered a big threat to the main continuity Miles of Earth 1610. Ultimatum, though to some may be considered the main reality version of the character, oddly enough. He hails from Earth 616, widely considered to be the main continuity. However, Miles got displaced to Earth 616 as a reward after giving Molecule Man something to eat during the events of Secret Wars. Earth 1610, the Ultimate Universe at the time, was no longer a thing, and so Owen Reese basically gave Miles and his family a new life and a second chance in the Earth 616 continuity. Ultimatum, however, was originally from Earth 616, but for a time himself moved to Earth 1610, having life there. When Earth 1610 Miles showed up on Earth 616, however, Earth 616 Miles, who goes by the villainous name of Ultimatum, decided it would be best if Spider-Man relocate, and attempted to send him and his family back to the now resurrected Ultimate Universe. Needless to say, Miles did not like that very much. 1610 Miles. Ooh, it's confusing. Number 4. Insomniac's Miles Morales. Insomniac's Miles Morales is the version that hails from the PlayStation and now PC game Spider-Man Miles Morales. This version of Miles is still figuring out how to be a hero, but finds himself superpowered after being bitten by an experimental Oscorp spider. Miles, in his own short sequel, is tasked with looking after New York in Peter's absence. Like his comic book counterpart, he has the proportional strength, speed, and agility of a spider, but also possesses camouflage abilities and his Venom Blast as well. Miles is also something of an aspiring scientist himself. Like Peter, he also possesses a genius level intellect. Number 3. Mayor Miles Morales. Mayor Miles Morales hails from the alternate future of Earth 13153, as seen in Miles Morales: The End. In this reality, a group of monsters known as the Germs attacked and destroyed most of Earth. Brooklyn ends up being one of the last safe havens for humanity, where many people have fled to. Miles ends up revealing his secret identity in this reality to some of Earth's last survivors, and ends up becoming the mayor of of New York, hence why we call him Mayor Miles Morales, or Mayor Morales if you will. As a result, he works hard to fight against the germs and keep the people of Brooklyn safe. In the end, this older, more experienced version of Miles chooses to sacrifice his life in the fight to protect his people. He ends up dying while also taking out the threat of Captain Last, a villain who models himself after Captain America and ends up merged with the germ in the end. Number 2. Earth 8. This is an alternate future to that of Earth 65. In this reality, Miles Morales ends up married to Spider-Gwen. The two go on to become members of the Amazing Eight, their world's premier superhero team. They have 2 children together who also join the team, and also both Miles and Gwen are known as celebrities the world over in this reality. It's apparently a paradise-like reality where the world's own Watcher is constantly worried about the Watcher of Earth 65, as damage done to that world would obviously cause Earth 8 to cease to exist. While we don't know too much about the power levels of this Earth's Miles Morales, we can't imagine both he and Gwen are powerful enough and have a good enough handle on the world with their superhero team that they can pretty much just up and take a second honeymoon without much worry. So I think that's saying something. Number 1. Hulk. Miles Morales becomes the Hulk in issue number 3 of his own What If series. In this series, we see alternate versions of him becoming different heroes other than Spider-Man, and in this issue, one of those alternate heroes is of course none other than the Hulk. Here we learn that in this alternate world, Miles became the Hulk thanks to his uncle Aaron. His uncle was holding on to nuclear materials used to build a bomb, while he was holding on to sort of the energy source for that. It was only a part of the bomb, and when Miles swatted at a spider near the briefcase that was contained in, it resulted in one of the capsules kind of exploding. He was transformed into the Hulk, and from that day would struggle with his own inner demons and rage, and also deal with, becoming a Hulk every now and then. Eventually, he came to blows with this Earth's Abomination, who was actually responsible likely for his own transformation as well as for killing his uncle, which Miles felt very complex feelings about that whole thing. And here, Miles' Hulk was strong enough to, 1, end Abomination, which is pretty spooky, and brave enough to confront and accept his anger as well as forgive his deceased Uncle Aaron. Hulk really is the strongest there is. Even Miles Hulk. It's like strong on a lot of levels. I love how Miles has his own long list of alternates. I just think that's so cool. It just goes to show you he truly is just Spider-Man.
Coming in at number 10 is Earth 616. Most fans of Miles Morales know this already, but for those who aren't aware, the Miles Morales that has become the second Spider-Man and who all the alternate Miles are based on is actually not native to the main Marvel universe. That Miles actually comes from Marvel's Ultimate Universe, the Earth 1610 universe. So then, that kind of begs the question of who and where the heck is the main continuity Miles Morales? Well, he's there, but he is much different. Miles Morales was a member of the Rigoletto crime family who ended up with a 3-year sentence in Rikers Island to cover for his cousin, which got him the respect of the family and of Wilson Fisk, who Miles saved in prison. Miles and Fisk opened a restaurant together after they both got out, and when Wilson took over the crime family, he let Miles go and live a happy life with his wife. Unfortunately though, when his wife passed away, Miles went to find the same woman in an alternate universe, which brought him into conflict with Peter Parker and the main Miles Morales Spider-Man, and eventually brought him to Earth 1610, the Ultimate Universe, where he found his love again. Now when he returned to Earth 616, Miles had outfitted himself with an Ant-Man suit, Iron Man repulsors, and a Captain America looking shield, and he brought some friends in order to face his younger Miles counterpart and try and run the streets of New York once again. Number 9. Thor. Last year, in 2022, in case you were watching this from the future, we got a whole series of What If comics centered specifically around the character of Miles Morales, and each issue of that comic gave us a different Miles who had taken after a different hero. For the 4th issue of this series, the World Tree of Yggdrasil had found itself in Brooklyn, creating a version of Brooklyn that was Asgardified, or an Asgard that has been Brooklynified. I guess, you pick. In case you haven't guessed, the Miles Morales of temporary reality number 951 has indeed become Thor Odin's son. All the other classic pillars of the Thor mythos are here too, substituted with Miles' mom and dad for Frigga and Odin, his friends substituting as the Warriors 3, and of course his uncle Aaron as the trickster god Loki, who tricks Thor Odin's son Morales into stealing the skull of the frost giant Laufey in order to impress his pops. If you check this one out, please let me know what you think of all the rhyming and rapping this version of Miles tries to do, and if it made you cringe like it made me cringe, because it really did make me cringe like quite a lot. Why did they do that? I don't know. Number 8. Ultimate Spider-Ham. Spider-Ham is one of the most popular alternate versions of Spider-Man out there, but he is just an alternate version of Peter Parker. Luckily for us, his popularity coupled with the popularity of Miles Morales gave us Miles Morhames. Yes, that is his name, and he is the ultimate Spider-Pig. As is the case in seemingly all universes, Miles' uncle was secretly a masked criminal known in this universe as the Fowler. One of the items Fowler had stolen turned out to be a radioactive spider, which is the one that bit Miles, granting him his spider abilities. Following the passing of the original Spider-Ham when he defeated the Green Gobbler once and for all, Miles stepped up to take his mantle in order to become the ultimate Spider-Ham. The world that Miles hailed from, Earth 14094, ended up actually being destroyed by Dr. Doom after the world was saved from Galactopus, who, he's not an octopus, but get this, Galactus is a platypus. I mean, come on. I feel like I'm way too excited about this. After the destruction of his reality, Miles traveled the multiverse warning other universes of how to protect themselves against calamity until he arrived on Earth 1610, where he stayed. Number 7. Hulk. I wasn't done with the What If Miles Morales stories yet. I can't just give you guys one of those awesome Miles Moraleses. I can give you all the Miles Moraleses. Yeah, Miles Morales in this issue is very much like his normal self until the day that Uncle Aaron made a deal with Emil Blonsky. Aaron found himself in possession of a suspicious briefcase. Noticing a spider on said briefcase, Miles attempted to kill it, but instead accidentally knocked over the briefcase, which caused him to step on a nuclear cartridge, exposing himself to gamma radiation, and well, he got Hulkified in the middle of the night. Miles tries to keep his transformations on the down low and under control, enlisting the help of his friend Genki, who didn't believe him until Miles stepped on a Lego, which, as we all should know, causes a rage and turned him into the Hulk. Eventually, Miles spied on his uncle as the Prowler as he was dealing with Emil, which is when his uncle made an attempt at Emil's life. Now during their kerfuffle, another briefcase was dropped and Uncle Aaron also found himself being exposed to gamma radiation, but this time he was turned into the Abomination. Number 6. Into the Spider-Verse. Yes, of course we have to talk about the version of Miles Morales appearing in the awesome animated Spider-Verse movies. Voiced by actor Shameik Moore, this version of Miles Morales brought the character to a very large audience with an origin story that differed slightly from his original counterpart, but it also still retains enough elements of that original story, which I believe is part of the reason his universe designation is Earth 1610B instead of having its own separate reality number. The best part of this Miles Morales though is when the Spider-Verse opens up and he gets to interact with the various other Spider-Men and women across the multiverse. The first movie was an absolute hit. It had a dope soundtrack, an amazing animation style with a superb cast, hilarious writing, and a heap of heartfelt moments. Now I have yet to see the sequel, but I am super excited to see where this Miles Morales goes with his story. Number 5. Mayor. This version of Miles Morales comes at us from the series known as The End, which basically chronicles the final stories of various different heroes in the Marvel landscape. Some of the most famous of these stories have been The Hulk The End and Deadpool The End, but for Miles Morales, his possible alternate future takes place decades from now in a ravaged place that was once New York City. Most places on Earth had been ravaged by monsters known as the Germs, with Brooklyn being one of the few places that had been saved and protected by this massive shield. Side note, I like how germs are the monsters here. Like, it's kind of like all those things you learn about as kids when germs were like little monsters, but now they're actual monsters. Kind of hilarious, kind of cool. I don't know. But after becoming Spider-Man and letting the world know his identity, Miles was chosen as mayor of Brooklyn and as its protector. He faced off against a Captain America wannabe known as Captain Last and his One America army of raiders. After Captain Last eventually merges with a germ in order to attack Brooklyn, Miles sacrifices his life to bring the Captain down and save the lives of everyone in Brooklyn. Good job. Way to go. Number 4. Wolverine. Yep, it's another Miles Morales what if, and I don't know why Wolverine is the last person I expected to see in this series, but I'm extremely okay with it. Miles Morales in this world is instead a mutant with the same abilities as Wolverine. When he is younger, Miles is stolen away alongside other children by Weapon X, who turn him into the adamantium skeleton superweapon just like the regular Wolverine. Now fast forward a few years, and now in this world, Sentinels are being used to hunt down mutants by S.H.I.E.L.D. And after Miles takes out like 3 of them, S.H.I.E.L.D. sends this super cool looking warrior wielding an adamantium katana to take Miles out. This awesome S.H.I.E.L.D. warrior turns out to be Miles' father, and once he discovers this Wolverine mutant is his own son, he instead turns on S.H.I.E.L.D., which is when they send in Miles' uncle Aaron, who seems to be this world's version of Sabretooth. Miles' father defends his son to his dying breath until Miles jumps in to beat Sabretooth to a pulp and almost ends him before his father convinces him not to and to instead be a hero. It all wraps up with the X-Men showing up to recruit Miles, but led by Professor X, who is Genki Lee. It's just wild. It's so cool. Number 3, Vision Miles. No, this is not a highly advanced android version of Miles Morales. It is, in fact, the Miles Morales who exists in a possible future shown to us in a vision from the inhuman precog known as Ulysses Kane. The reason I want to talk about this seemingly insignificant version of Miles Morales who only appeared in a vision is because this Miles was able to take the life of Captain America. Now obviously Captain America is not an indestructible guy. He's not the most powerful hero and he could probably be taken out by any number of heroes, but the respect that Captain America carries and the influence he has makes him one of those characters that you simply do not see being taken out very often. So, to see it happen here in Civil War II at the hands of Miles Morales on the steps of the ruined United States Capitol building in the reality of Earth 61115 is one hell of a shocking image. I want to know what happens after Miles does this, but we won't know until a writer decides to take the initiative to put out a story set in this alternate crazy reality. Number 2, the Falcon. Temporary reality number 852 gave us a Miles whose history is similar to his Earth 1610 counterparts, only he never gained powers from a genetically engineered spider. Instead, this Miles' favorite heroes were the totally underrated Nighthawk and his sidekick and partner, the Falcon. Unfortunately, like how Spider-Man lost his life to the Goblin in the Ultimate reality, in this one, it's the Falcon that ultimately croaked at the hands of the Goblin. This devastated Miles, and he took it as his opportunity to take the reins. Creating a costume similar to the Falcon's using his electrical engineering skills, Miles aided Nighthawk as he was battling the villains Scorpion and Scorpia. But Nighthawk was not too receptive to this pretender coming in and trying to replace his old partner. Wanting to prove to Nighthawk that he could be a hero, Miles created the Young Squadron with Kid Spectrum and Girl Power. While Miles and the Young Squadron were fighting the Wrecking Crew, Miles was stolen away by the Goblin's partner Deadpool, who was attempting to make sure the Falcon Mantle never came back. Deadpool was eventually defeated by the other members of the Young Squadron, and after handing Deadpool over to Nighthawk, Miles and the Young Squadron decided to be a better team than the other heroes of their reality. And finally, in at number 1, Captain America. Yes, we are rounding off today's list with the very first of the What If Miles Morales stories, which in my opinion is one of the best. In the very first issue, Miles' dad is part of the new super soldier program inspired by the original that created Captain America. Uncle Aaron, who always plays a large part in Miles' life, steals the super soldier serum and keeps it in his fridge, which is where Miles finds it looking for a drink. It turns out Miles is actually a perfect match for the serum, and he becomes the new Captain America. It's super cool because not only is Miles the new Cap, but Tiana Toombs becomes the Falcon and Sam Wilson becomes the new director of S.H.I.E.L.D. with the eye patch and everything. Uncle Aaron becomes Prowler after being attacked by Black Widow, and Lonnie Lincoln is the Grey Skull, which is this reality's Red Skull. Miles here seems to be just as powerful as the normal Captain America, if not a little younger and by extension, a little bit more naive. Kicking off the list at number 10 is Spider-Cat. Ah! It's a kitty! It's a little kitty cat Miles Morales. Or, I'm so sorry, Meows Morales. No, I'm not joking, that's actually his name. Look at his little cute face. Coming to us very briefly in the pages of Spider-Man Annual Volume 3, Number 1, Spider-Cat was one of the combatants in the first ever Secret War. Yes, that's Secret Wars, but animalified. He appeared for about 5 minutes when he was knocked into the window of the Watchdog's bar and had an extremely brief conversation with Howard the Duck and Spider-Ham, during which Meow's uncle, Uncle Heron, was mentioned, who in this animal universe has the evil alter ego of dun dun dun, the Growler. Ooh, nice. Unfortunately, the Celestial who was supervising this battle realm was just a big old grumpy grump and decided that he would completely destroy the place, including anyone who inhabited it. But I will hold out hope that we get to see Meows Morales once again in the future, at some point. Hopefully. Maybe. Number 9, Dark Ages. Dark Ages is, in my humble opinion, a pretty underrated story. Essentially, a superpowered machine known as the Unmaker was causing massive devastation in the core of the planet, and in an attempt to stop the threat, a portal created by Doctor Strange released an EMP that completely crippled the world's technology. The story essentially sees the world rebuilding itself without the use of any advanced technology, while also dealing with the many threats of the world, including werewolves, vampires, and supervillains, specifically the mutant apocalypse. Miles was one of the survivors of this new society, although here, Miles became bonded to the Venom symbiote, which he used to try and help during the first early years. They worked together well until the Carnage symbiote also forcibly bonded itself to Miles as well. Not like Carnage kicking out Venom, I'm talking Carnage corrupting Venom, and the two symbiotes both agreed to take over Miles' body. And they even went to work for Apocalypse in exchange for a starship to escape the Earth. All the while, Miles remained unconscious, being used as an unwilling host. It sounds horrifying, but the Venom Carnage combo was absolutely awesome in my opinion. A little scary, but awesome. Very awesome. Number 8, Deathlock. Just like what happens on Earth 616, the Miles Morales of Earth 807128 also eventually became a member of the Champions. However, while acting as a champion, Dr. Octopus opened up a portal to the Negative Zone, allowing Annihilus and the Annihilation Wave to come to Earth. Now, Miles, being a hero among heroes, confronted the invading wave, but because he's not that powerful, he was inevitably defeated. But luckily, instead of being outright robbed of his life, he was instead brought to Annihilus. Now, face to face with Annihilus, Miles ended up stealing the cosmic control rod that gives its wielder control over the Annihilation Wave. Only, instead of taking command of the wave, Miles instead swung away and using his Venom blasts, destroyed the rod completely, losing his own life in the process. It was after all of that he was later turned into a Deathlock. As a Deathlock, one of his missions was to hunt down Conan the Barbarian, whose presence in the present time was causing damage to the timeline. And all that takes place in Savage Avengers Volume 2 from 2022, and you can go read it yourself. Number 7, Spider-Man Life Story. The comic story Spider-Man Life Story sets itself apart from the rest of the Marvel multiverse by having no sliding time scale. Essentially, this means that Peter Parker and Miles Morales aged like they realistically would from the moment their comics were first issued. So for Miles, he always coexisted with Peter Parker, gaining his powers in 2011 when he was 13 years old, when he was bitten by a radioactive spider. Now, during a time that Peter was missing, Miles took on the Spider-Man mantle until Peter finally came back and took Miles under his wing. Miles worked alongside Peter's resistance when Dr. Doom successfully overtook the Earth with the help from Dr. Octopus. Now, Miles and Peter were key members of the Resistance, but unbeknownst to Dr. Doom, Doc Ock was essentially gaining knowledge to swap his consciousness into the body of Spider-Man, just like he did in the Superior Spider-Man arc, which eventually he did, only this time it was Miles, trapping Miles in Octavius's failing body. Now, being a lot older than the Peter we are used to, Peter Parker figured out what Otto had done, convinced him to undo it, and then sacrificed himself to free the Earth of Dr. Doom. When Otto actually kept his word and returned Miles to his own body, Miles was given Mary Jane's blessing to carry on as this world's main Spider-Man at the age of around 21 years old. That was confusing. Number 6, Spider Mole. Look, we've already got Spider Ham, a pig, and we have Spider Cat, which is a cat. So I mean, it kinda just makes sense that we gotta have a Spider Mole. And that's exactly what we got in all new, all different Avengers Annual number 1 from August of 2016. Spider Mole was, yes, you guessed it, an anthropomorphic mole with the proportionate abilities of a spider. Does it sound completely bonkers? Yes. Are we surprised? Nope. Or at least we really shouldn't be. Spider-Mole used his awesome spider powers to become a superhero who would often spend his time with Hiss Marvel. Yes, that's Kamala Khan, Miss Marvel, as a snake. When the villain Quack-O-Lantern broke into a bank, Spider-Mole and Hiss Marvel were there to save the day before they went back to their date. Ooh la la, fancy pantsy fancy. Wow. Number 5, Earth 1048. Finally! It's the Miles Morales from the acclaimed Marvel's Spider-Man video game. This version of Miles ranks among quite a few people's favorites, and I think that is more than fair considering just how awesome each game from this series has been so far. Miles' standalone game, while shorter than the first, was in some ways an improvement over its predecessor. In the original game though, is where we got his origin. When Miles' father was going to be awarded at the New York City Hall for his heroic acts helping Spider-Man, Martin Lee, acting as his evil alter ego, Mr. Negative, attacked as part of his revenge plot against the mayor Norman Osborn. There's a whole lot going on here. Miles' father's passing caused Miles to become distant and reckless to the point of trying to fight criminals by himself, which is when he was saved by Spider-Man. Meeting his hero was a big deal for Miles, and they kind of became like unofficial friends when Spider-Man suggested that Miles help out at the shelter alongside Mary Jane and Aunt May. It was here, while helping move boxes at the shelter, that a genetically altered spider that had hitched a ride on Mary Jane Watson's jacket from a secret lab at Norman Osborn's apartment jumped off Mary Jane and made its way down to the boxes Miles was moving, causing him to be bitten. That's the Sparks Notes version of that story. You'll have to watch or play the game yourself to learn his whole story. I'm personally excited to see where his character goes in the second game when it finally comes out. Number 4, Earth 42. Okay, before we jump into anything here, if you have not seen the animated Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse movie yet, and you don't want spoilers, then I suggest that you may want to skip ahead to our third spot today. I repeat, spoiler warning ahead. Okay, as most of you know, Miles Morales was born to Jefferson Morales and Rio Morales in Brooklyn, New York. That's the same here on Earth 42. However, on Earth 42, Miles was supposed to become the Spider-Man, only the spider that was supposed to bite him was actually teleported to Earth 1610B, where it bit the Miles Morales from the first Spider-Verse movie and then later lost its life. This left Earth 42 with no Spider-Man to protect it. Another factor that altered the life of this Miles Morales was the passing of his father, Jefferson. This left Miles being raised by his uncle, Aaron Davis. This inadvertently led to Miles donning what would have been his uncle's suit and becoming this universe's Prowler. Okay, now we can move on. Number 3, Married. This one is an interesting one, specifically because the Earth that this Miles calls home, Earth 8, is actually a possible future of yet another alternate Earth, Earth 65. In Earth 8, Miles Morales ends up marrying the Gwen Stacy Spider-Woman of another alternate Earth, and as a superhero duo, they become pretty famous celebrities. Alongside their 2 children, Spider-Girl and Spider-Boy, plus Spider-Ham, Penny Parker, Jerry Drew, and this really cool Craven-looking Spider-Woman, Miles and Gwen led the Amazing 8, this world's greatest superhero team. While Miles and Gwen were on their second honeymoon in Vanaheim, Gwen's younger self from Earth 65 accidentally arrived in Earth 8's New York and went to the Amazing 8 and specifically Spider-Ham for help to fight Silk back in her reality. Unbeknownst to Miles or Earth 8 Gwen, the 6 other members of the Amazing 8 did indeed go and help the Gwen from Earth 8. From Earth 65. Earth 8? Earth 60? Earth 65. God damn it. Number 2, Mind Spinner. For some reason, when Marvel decided to give us Miles Morales, I guess they couldn't think of any really unique or creative stories, so, just like Peter Parker, Miles got his own Clone Saga storyline. Was it necessary? Maybe not. Did it have awesome stuff? You bet your pants it did. In case you haven't guessed yet, Mind Spinner was indeed a clone of Miles. Unlike Miles though, Mind Spinner had actual physical spider qualities, meaning he had actual massive spider legs, which is just terrifying. But beyond that, Mind Spinner also didn't develop the ability to speak. Instead, he seemed to have psionic abilities which he could also turn into telepathic attacks. Mind Spinner and his brothers escaped and tried to find a way to stay alive as they were not going to last due to their unstable cells and rapid aging processes. Now, Mind Spinner and his brother Salim were arguably the more sinister of the Miles clones, and in their desperation to save their own lives, they would try and attack Miles' family, with Mind Spinner specifically going for his mom. Luckily, Miles was able to stop him. It wasn't until another of Miles' clones saved the day that the other clones began to turn on each other, and Mind Spinner and Salim ended up destroying each other, leaving just one clone left. And in at number 1, it's Shift. That other clone would be Shift. Shift is pretty unique compared to the other two clones. While Salim and Mind Spinner had more spider-like or Miles-like abilities, Shift himself was considered a failed clone due to his unstable form. But this was actually just part of his shape-shifting abilities. Shift can expand, contract, or stretch his own mass. He has grown multiple limbs and even changed his whole appearance to that of a monster before. He's quite cool, but what's even cooler is that unlike his brothers, Shift seems to have a bit more of a heroic morality. At one point when he was left alone to guard Miles while Mind Spinner and Salim went off to attack Miles' family, Shift instead helped out his genetic template. He was the one to save Miles' sister from Salim, which caused the clone to attack Shift, which caused Mind Spinner to attack Salim, and that is how the other two clones passed away, leaving just Shift as the last remaining clone and an ally to Miles. There's a really cool story where Shift and Miles take on Salim from a different reality, but that's a tale for another time, so sorry. Number 10. Peter Parker of Earth 92100. You'd think the addition of extra arms for a Spider-Man would be an added benefit. When it happened to Peter in the 616 universe, he panicked and got rid of it with the DNA of Morbius. Understandably. But on Earth 92100, Morbius did not live long enough to help Peter, being eaten by sharks of all things. And since no one else could, Peter kinda had to just deal with it. Turns out, during a fight with Doc Ock, after Peter embraced his extra appendages, they actually give him a distinct advantage. They actually grant him much more strength and agility, and using them, he is even able to save Gwen Stacy from her demise. Unfortunately, they don't really protect him from the inheritors. Spider Limbs here sacrifices himself to save Spider-Man 2099 and Lady Spider in Spider-Man 2099 Volume 2 Number 6 in 2014. Number 9. Spider Assassin. Do you know how effective Spider-Man would actually be if he was a little less moral but still a crime fighter? Pretty effective. And while we've seen a few different examples of this, I chose to pull from What If? Spider-Man vs. Wolverine number 1, where we are introduced to Spider Assassin. In his universe, with great power comes great responsibility and greater enemies, which led this Peter of Earth 8351 to leave New York to protect his family. He joined up with Wolverine, and likely because of this friendship, he is much less opposed to sending criminals to the afterlife. He's also almost always serious, not resorting to quips and jokes to cope with situations anymore, which is reflective in his costume, which is a much darker look, especially with those black eyes. I really dig it. His web shooters have also been shown to shoot black webs in some panels, and they also include firearms. He is an effective addition to the Spider Army when it was formed, and an extremely effective Spider-Man indeed. Number 8. Spidersman. Alright, yeah. Nope, not a fan of this one. You ever seen those videos of people finding spider nests where it's literally a swarm of spiders? Yeah, okay, imagine that, but they're superpowered and come together to take on a human form. Now you've got the terrifying Spidersman, which, side note, that's a great name. In Spider-Geddon number 3 of 2018, we are introduced to a colony of radioactively powered spiders who consumed a high school boy by the name of Peter Parker when he fell into their enclosure at Horizon Labs. After consuming Peter, the spiders gained a sort of hive mind in Peter's image and began fighting crime in Cruel York of Earth 11580. Other than his usual Spider-Man powers and the benefits of being a swarm of spiders, the colony is also able to poison its victims with a bite, fight, or if they're hungry for power, devour them whole. And it's incredibly hard to actually de-life this guy, as even a single spider being alive means technically Spider's man is also still alive and can multiply to rebuild itself. Number 7. Spider UK. The first Spider-Man mashed with another Marvel hero. These mashups always make for powerful characters. Basically, Spider UK is William Braddock, hailing from Earth 833. If you haven't gathered from the Braddock namesake, Spider UK is what would happen if Spider-Man was Captain Britain. As such, he is part of the Captain Britain Corps, being introduced in the Edge of Spider-Verse Volume 1. He is also part of the Spider Army put together to take on the Inheritors, and a pretty important part of it, he was not only an amazing leader but also had a very useful dimension hopping ability. Unfortunately, this Spider-Man didn't actually have a spider sense, which is probably what allowed him to be de-lifed by an attack from behind in Spider-Geddon number 1. Number 6. Spider-Man 2099. Probably one of the most loved characters on this list. The Spider-Man of Earth 928, Miguel O'Hara, or as he's better known, Spider-Man of the dystopian future of 2099. This version of Spider-Man has many similar abilities to 616 Peter Parker, but some that are not so similar. He has super speed, which is actually capable of somehow creating a decoy. His spider sense allows him to telepathically communicate with others. He has accelerated vision, he has retractable talons, and also has fangs that he can use to paralyze others. And he has the famously disgusting organic spider silk spinnerets on his wrists. He first appeared as a preview in Amazing Spider-Man number 365 in June of 1992, and in his own series in Spider-Man 2099 number 1 in September 1992, and he is a titanically awesome character. Number 5. The Spider of Earth 15. There are a lot of characters who go by the Spider, but specifically, I'm talking about the one that's bonded with the Carnage symbiote who comes from Earth 15. The Spider of Earth 15 is a much more sadistic, sociopathic, red-headed version of Peter Parker, which is proven by the fact that he has been sentenced to a total of 67 life sentences in prison for the crimes he has committed. To make him just a bit more lovable, he has a sense of humor very much like that of Deadpool. The Spider was introduced in Exiles number 12 and was a big part of the reality-conquering Weapons X team featured in it, being a sometimes leader of that team. As a Carnage-bonded sociopath, he was pretty powerful, but he was nonetheless sent to the afterlife by a blast from Firestar in Exiles number 44. Number 4. Poison. From one symbiote to another. Every time that pesky Venom symbiote would try to merge with Peter Parker, he would only get halfway before Peter could repel him. Now, what happens if Peter Parker is defeated by Venom, who completely bonds with him? In the What If Spider-Man the Other story, after Peter is defeated by Morlun and cocoons himself under Brooklyn Bridge, he is offered the chance to be resurrected by the Spider God. But instead of allowing this, he refuses and is ejected from his cocoon non-resurrected. Cut to Venom, who, being Spider-Man's crazy ex-girlfriend, senses what is happening and completely ditches his current host. He intercepts Peter's body and after months of struggling, fully bonds to Peter. Now, Peter has all the fully realized powers that come with being a symbiote, but he actually has stingers that are capable of piercing the skin of Luke Cage, which is pretty insane. Number 3. Spider-Hulk. The second Spider amalgam here. Spider-Man of the Immortal Hulk with Great Power story is granted the alter ego of the Hulk after Loki magically transferred the Gamma power to him. So it's Spider-Man's relative spider powers mixed with an unstoppable green monstrosity with the temperament of a toddler. It's actually really cool. Eventually, the power of the Hulk is switched back to Banner with the help of the Fantastic Four and Banner's own genius. It's a short little story that seems almost self-contained, but it's an insanely cool one, and a Spider-Hulk would be an incredibly powerful character if he were to show up again and had more time to hone his abilities and temper tantrums. Number 2. Ghost Spider. The last Spider-Man mashed up with other heroes, but nonetheless possibly one of the most powerful potential mashups. Also, in my opinion, the coolest looking one. Also, it appears that Uncle Ben leaving this plane of existence is actually a really good thing. See, on Earth 11638, Ben never loses his life to a mugger. and he helps train Peter with his powers and helping him form Parker Industries. Peter and Uncle Ben end up building a machine that allows Peter to lure alternate versions of Spider-Man to this reality where he absorbs their powers to increase his own. That kind of took a dark turn, didn't it? But when he tried to do this to the apparently most powerful Spider-Man from Earth 616, he is de-lifed and his soul is sent to hell, where, with the assistance of the Infernal Hulk, he is fused with the spirit of vengeance, becoming the Ghost Spider. If you know anything about Ghost Rider, you know how actually insanely powerful he is, even going toe-to-toe with Galactus at one point. So yeah, this Spider-Man / Ghost Rider guy is potentially extremely powerful. Number 1. Cosmic Spider-Man. There was a point in time when Peter Parker of Earth 616 absorbed the Enigma Force and became the most powerful version of Spider-Man we have ever seen, even capable of punching the Hulk into orbit. In the mainline continuity, he doesn't have it for very long. But on Earth 13, he kept the powers and became the hero Captain Universe. So, this Peter Parker has all the usual Spider-Man powers, but also now has cosmic awareness where he can sense things on a subatomic level and from crazy distances. He has energy manipulation, giving him energy blast and flight. He also used his abilities to manipulate matter, making his webs as strong as adamantium, or even changing their shape altogether. His universe became a safe haven for all the Spider-Men when the Inheritors were hunting them, because Captain Universe could defeat them, and his cosmic powers are gone when he leaves that dimension. Unfortunately, he is consumed by Solus, who used the life force basis of his powers against him in Amazing Spider-Man number 11 in 2014. He's still cool though. Number 10. Twinkie Spider-Man. Woody Harrelson's character from Zombieland would be ecstatic. While originally a crossover advertisement deal between Hostess, you know, the company that owns Twinkies, Snowballs, and those cupcake snack pastries, and Marvel, the Spider-Man of Earth 51914 is an official member of the Spider-Verse, being defeated by Morlun in the first Spider-Verse comic in 2014. This sweet Spider-Man has all the same powers as our 616 Spider-based hero, only he has the added benefit of using Hostess snacks as equipment to distract, lure, and reason with criminals, and even get out of tight spots in his relationships, like when he gave Mary Jane a cupcake so he could slip away to fight crime. Yeah, using his pastry-based equipment, he was able to defeat The Fly, Printout Man, Simon the Evil Swami, Madame Web, Legal Eagle, an unnamed jewel thief, chairman, homewrecker, demolition derby, photo man, hotshot, Junjitsu, Larsenius Lil, and the human computer. So yeah, that's not just a sponsor, it's an added ability that puts him a cut above any regular old Spider-Man. Number 9. Spider-Man Noir. When darkness falls on New York City, only one hero in a black fedora and a trench coat can use his keen detective skills and the powers bestowed upon him from a spider god to solve crimes and protect the citizens. It's Spider-Man, see? A grittier, more serious and ruthless world calls for a Peter Parker who is much the same, and a Spider-Man Noir is definitely that guy. After he seeks out revenge on the Goblin for taking away the life of his Uncle Ben, he goes to a warehouse where a spider idol containing thousands of spiders is broken. One of these spiders bites Peter, and zim zim zalabim, Peter has visions of a spider god and is granted abilities. Spider-Man Noir may not be the most powerful character in the Spider-Verse, but he has the power of popularity on his side, being a fan favorite character ever since his introduction, which is why, in my opinion, he is one of the only Spider-Men to survive Morlun, despite whatever excuses the comics gave. Number 8. Peyton Parnell. I think this is the most terrifying version of Spider-Man I have ever seen. Maybe even more so than Spider-Man. Peyton Parnell, or Patton Parnell, is nothing like Peter Parker. He's a sociopath, a maniac, and he has the ability to transform into a monster spider/man hybrid with 8 eyes, 8 limbs, and massive spider-like fangs. Seeing this bald monster thing crawl around your walls and your ceiling, that's scary enough, but knowing he ate at least 3 people, including his uncle, and can implant hundreds and hundreds of baby spiders into you just by biting you, is absolutely nightmare-inducing. Luckily, he gets defeated pretty soon after his creation by Morlun, but at the time Patton Parnell from Earth 51412 was around, he was very powerful and very scary. Number 7. Spider-Ham. Hailing from a verse where all the Marvel characters are replaced with cartoon character animal versions of themselves, Peter Porker is Spider-Ham, a pig. Peter Porker was actually born a spider named Peter, and he lived in the basement lab of May Porker, a scientist who had created the world's first atomic-powered hairdryer. May Porker, using the atomic hairdryer, accidentally irradiated herself, and then bit Peter the spider, which made him turn into an anthropomorphic pig, just like her, only with the relative powers of a spider. In his premiere issue, he would go on to do battle with Hulk Bunny, created when Bruce Bunny was trapped in an arcade cabinet and bombarded with gamma radiation. Look, I wish I was making all this up. I really do. Spider-Ham has most of the same abilities as 616 Spider-Man, only he has this rather unique ability called Spider Nonsense, which basically allows him to be more and more cartoony the more danger he is in, which is the perfect reason to have the wackiest nonsense happen that will save this piggy hide in some of the most imaginative ways possible. This power alone helps him to be an extremely powerful Spider-Man, or pig. Number 6. Takayuya Yamashiro. Instead of being Peter Parker, the Japanese Spider-Man, Spiderman, is Takuya Yamashiro, a motocross racer and son of astrophysicist Dr. Hiroshi Yamashiro. Unlike most versions of Spider-Man, Takayuya was introduced through a live-action Japanese Spider-Man TV show. With that, his character differs quite a bit. For starters, his spider powers are a little less powerful due to budget constraints for the show, which is a hilarious reason. But to make up for that, he utilizes a whole mech named Leopardon, Power Ranger style, with arm rockets, a giant sword, and a boomerang. Classic. He uses Leopardon and his spider abilities to fight the Iron Cross Army. It's a group of suspiciously human-looking aliens from an unnamed world who are led by, wait for it, Professor Monster. Due to his popularity and just how awesome he is, Takayuya Yamashiro has become an official character in the multiverse, coming from Earth 51778, fighting against the Inheritors alongside the Spider Army, and he is set to appear in the second animated Spider-Verse movie, which I am pumped to see. Number 5. Superior Spider-Man. This variation of the Spider-Man is unique for this list. It is Peter Parker from Earth 616, only his body is actually inhabited by the mind of Otto Octavius, Dr. Octopus. But he isn't evil. No, being in the body of Peter gave Otto an insight into Peter's life and motivation, and actually gave him a change of heart. Now we have a Spider-Man with all the powers of Peter Parker, but the super genius intellect of Otto, who vowed to dedicate himself to being the best Spider-Man he could in honor of Peter, who had seemingly been de-lifed while inhabiting Otto's body. And boy, he did that vow justice. The combo of that body with this mind helped him to be one of the strongest versions of Spider-Man ever, with a new enhanced suit and a ruthless way of dealing with criminals. He would eventually sacrifice himself to allow Peter to come back to inhabit his body once again. But man, was this a powerful main universe variant. Number 4. Miles Morales. He is possibly one of the most popular variants of Spider-Man to come into the Marvel multiverse. And for good reason. Miles Morales is an incredible character. He has almost all the regular spider abilities plus some amazing powers unique to himself, namely his venom, which is like a form of bioelectricity that he can emit from his body and use in some really cool ways, like in punches, beams, and blasts, as well as at long range using his webbing. But it doesn't stop there. He is also able to use a spider camouflage to make his whole body and even his clothes and costume go invisible. And he is apparently immortal, as a side effect of the Oz formula that gave him his abilities. Miles hails from the Ultimate Universe of Earth 1610, which fits, because he is an ultimate version of Spider-Man. Number 3. Zombie Spider-Man. I know a lot of people are tired of hearing about Marvel zombies. Well, too bad! He's a powerful version of Spider-Man, so you know what? Just kind of deal with it, okay? Cool, alright. Yes, Zombie Spider-Man is essentially the same Spider-Man everyone is used to. All the same powers, at least. Except, after being bit by a zombie, he now also has a ravenous hunger that cannot be sated no matter what, which led him and a group of other heroes to consume the Silver Surfer and Galactus, which gave them all the power cosmic. With this power cosmic, the zombie Galacti have the ability to absorb and tap into ambient cosmic energy into their bodies at will and expel those energies, like channeling beams of energy through their hands with destructive force and teleporting through time and space, devouring entire planets. With this power, they have the potential to phase through objects, accelerate the evolution of life forms, see the past by peeling back the layers of time travel, and manipulate, absorb, and discharge any form of energy or radiation. Though Spider Zombie loses all of his power, he still had it, and was an incredibly powerful version of Spider-Man. Number 2, Penny Parker. This Parker from Earth 14512 doesn't actually have any powers of her own. So how is she at the number 2 spot? Because of the totally awesome mech SP//DR suit worn by her father before his demise, and that is half controlled by a radioactive spider. First appearing in Edge of Spider-Verse number 5 in October of 2014, Penny and the Spider Mech are essentially able to do anything, as she doesn't actually have any written limitations yet. Yes, that's a lame reason for her to be so powerful, but it is a legit reason all the same. The mech suit is outfitted with weapons for basically any situation a story calls for, and defenses that would put pretty much any other Spider-Man to shame. Why is she not higher up? Well, because all this could very easily change, and also because there is one variant of Spider-Man who is an ultimate universal threat. Number 1, Bully Maguire. The dance moves, the hair, the suit, able to flirt with anyone, demands promotions with a flick of his hair, unaffected by social norms, finger guns that could bring down an entire neighborhood, and a swagger that has everyone and their moms turning their heads. He is Bully Maguire. First appearing in Spider-Man 3 in 2007, this variation of Spider-Man has underneath his devilish suits a black venom-bonded spider suit that enhances his abilities and personality and gives him the awesome ability to throw some dirt in your eye that will make you lose your job. But if you want forgiveness, get religion. Billy Maguire has the unique ability to take to the internet, invading many different realities, including our own. Because of this, he has gone up against and shamed too many opponents to count. Thanos, Steve Harvey from Family Feud, President Joe Biden, Will Smith, characters in Star Wars, SpongeBob SquarePants, and the list goes on and on and on and continues to grow. There is truly no one safe from Bully Maguire, even me. Shout out to Arishen the Judge, who commented, "Bully Maguire is one of the most powerful beings in the universe. He possesses presumably all the same powers as the Prime Spider-Man." You weren't wrong and you inspired me, so thank you.